Okay, in this video I'm going to show how to get data over into MPlus, and also I'm going to run a basic CFA analysis on the same set of items that we were looking at a minute ago. So our structure looked perfect on the other one, so we didn't drop any items. So we're just going to retain a four-factor structure with kind of a parallel set of items on each of these four different subscales. So the first step is to make sure that we recode any missing data. So I already did this, but I'll show you how to do it. You recode into the same variable. You pull over all of the items, and I deleted all the other variables except for the ones that we're looking at in the CFA. And then you hit missing, system missing, and you enter 999 here and add. And what that's doing is any missing data, it's replacing it with the number 999. And that communicates, I'll show you in a minute where the syntax within MPlus, it'll be able to identify where there's missing data by seeing that 999. Okay, so we already did that, so I'm not going to run it. The second thing is you have to save the data set as a tab delimited file. And I'm going to call it 14/10/04 for the date. We'll save that. Okay, so I'm done for now with this data set. Okay. So this is our data set now. It's just a DAT file. And you have to go in and delete these variables from the top. And then the data set's ready to go. This is an input file that I pulled from somewhere else. And what you can do is that same SPSS file, you can copy and paste your variable list. That's what I found to be the easiest way to kind of put these in. This has to be in the exact order as your DAT file, or it'll screw things up. So this is where you're telling MPlus where the file is. As long as you have the input file in the same folder as your data file, then you don't have to enter the whole address. But if you've got it in different places, you can enter a longer address. I usually just do it this way. You have to put a semicolon after any command, or MPlus kind of freaks out. So that's probably one of the more challenging aspects. Sometimes it tells you in an error message, but sometimes it doesn't. So, okay. Yeah, later on I'll go in and kind of type in what everything is. But this here, you're naming, you're listing variables in the data set. Semicolon, don't forget that. And then this is the actual list that you use, which is going to be all of them at first, but if we had any problems and we wanted to delete items, you have to delete it from this set. You can leave yourself notes, and if you put this punctuation mark, it ignores what comes next. So this is your actual variables. And then to delete an item, you can put a semicolon, but still keep track of. It's a way of kind of keeping your syntax within your file, but just ignoring certain parts of it. Okay, so this is the statement telling how to find missing data. I think this is actually a default now, so that I have this carry over from syntax in the past, but and then you're telling it what kind of estimation to use. So say we wanted to use MLR. So the manual has the various options for these things, and you can certainly look into the manual for other stuff that you could potentially put in here. But this will run what we need. Then we have a model command. This is where we're going to tell the program what our CFA should look like. So the format here is, this is the factor name by, and then you're telling it which items are loading on that factor. So, and I could have typed these all out. If they're sequential, then you can actually use this dash, and it's going to read the theistic spirituality includes items 1 through 6. The nature spirituality includes 1 through 6. Human spirituality includes 1 through 6. Transcendent spirituality 1 through 6. And then there's various output you can ask for. So I'm asking for standardized, I'm asking for the residuals, modification indices. I can't remember what that is. It's pretty easy. You just have to tell it where the data is, tell it how the data is structured and what variables you're planning on using. There's some, typically you can kind of borrow someone's syntax to kind of get the defaults for the analysis you're running. And then you run your model. So for those of you who have done SEM before, the thing I'll add is if you wanted to kind of go from the measurement model to the structural model, it's as simple as, so human on trans, what you're telling it is this is your dependent variable, this is your independent variable. We could actually have several variables predicting human spirituality. So nature, theistic. That didn't really make sense, but that's how you model it. And I'll probably save it for another video, how to do kind of more complex tweaks to the model. But yeah, this is how to do a basic CFA. When you're ready to run it, you can hit Alt-R or click this little run button. And there you go. This is your output file, and I'll typically rename this, and this is what I save, and then I'll keep using the same input file and tweaking it. The reason why is it actually gives you your syntax at the beginning, so if you ever want to kind of go back and reuse that input, you can just pull it from your output file. So it gets confusing to have a whole bunch of, it saves 3 different files every time you run something, so I just keep the output file. So, it goes through various things. There's a ton of output. Right here is telling you, this is where you get an error message if you're having trouble with convergence. You get your chi-squared fit stuff, and with MLR, to do chi-squared comparisons, you need this Excel spreadsheet where you kind of enter in several of these things. It gives you an adjusted chi-squared comparison. Our RMSEA, typically you want this to be less than 0.08. It's adequate. I think they say less than like 0.06 is pretty good. So this is actually, this is a good fit. CFI, you want that to be above 0.95. Good fit again. SRMR, I think, is interpreted similar to the RMSEA, so that's good fit. And then the first set isn't completely standardized, so often just to kind of interpret the loadings, I'll come down and look at this completely standardized set. So our loadings are super high on this one. I mean, really, look across all 4. I mean, the loadings range from like 0.97 to, what's our low, 0.81. Yeah. These are the correlations between the factors. It's a little kind of to think about it. It gives you your intercepts, variances, residuals, etc. And then if you scroll down to the very bottom, it gives you modification indices. So our model fit pretty well, but if you had some of these that had massive chi-square differences, if you kind of did something different within the model, then you might want to change the model based on these. So that's kind of what these are telling you, is if you were having problems with the model, it would show you where those were showing up. Generally, so these are with statements. So what it's saying is some of these items are more strongly correlated than you would think they would be, which might indicate some kind of method factor. But because none of these are super strong, I'm not too worried about that, because the general overall fit looked pretty good up here. Not too worried. But little trick, I mean, just to get around in the output, you can do a find, and it kind of jumps to what you're asking for. So yeah, that's how to run a CFA. I'm gonna save this and say that the fit was good, R was pretty good on SEA. And it's saved, and I'm not sure. Okay. But later on, if we wanted to rerun different models, we can come back, open up the input file, or you could kind of pull syntax from this output. So yeah, that's about it.